Okay, so if you've been following this channel, number one, thank you. But since November or December of last year, you'd know that I have been reading Worm. And funny enough, like my goal at the start of this year, which was also my goal at the start of last year, was to read One Piece. And for the second year in a row, I just haven't done that. Worm has been the reading project instead of One Piece. And I have made a video after I have finished each arc. This being the 26th, as I just finished arc 26, that being Sting. If you noticed, I said that I just finished it. With every other arc, I've taken some time after to digest it, to think for a bit, like, okay, and like as I take notes as I read, or as I listen, because I've been, as I've said, it's an audiobook. That's how I'm doing it. I have a lot of notes for arc 26. It was a 10-hour arc. It was really, really fucking long. But there was a point when I was reading the last chapter in this arc. And if you're familiar with it, you know that's Scion's interlude. The Entities interlude. I think it's actually interlude ... Where I was taking a walk, because taking a walk or taking a drive, that's peak listening to Worm time. And I just had to call my friend Anthony, who I've shouted out a few times as the guy who got me into Worm, because I just needed to talk about it. And in the best possible way, what the fuck I was reading. And that's kind of the point of the videos, is me discussing my thoughts on the story for where I currently am, alongside potentially any kind of spoilers that I'm aware of. And the reason and also like I want to kind of chronicle my journey through it, my adventure through it. How has my opinion changed on the story, on Taylor, on other characters, etc., etc., etc. And I still want to do that for arc 26. Like, there's a lot that happened in this arc. This is the return of the Slaughterhouse 9 and Jack and Bonesaw, the crazy shit with Grey Boy. This is the arc where they drop a fucking building on a cube of Mantins to kill a bunch of Siberians. This is the arc with the Aster scene. And none of that matters because of Scion's interlude. I've said a few different times, after a few different arcs, 16 comes to mind, 19 comes to mind. I probably said this with like 3 and 8, about how it's like, man, this has got to be the best arc so far. It's like, this one was so good, this one was so interesting, or this one was so compelling. Again, this is fresh out of the oven, recency bias. Maybe when I have more time to think about it and collect my thoughts, I'll have changed my opinion a bit. I don't think anything so far touches this one. And a lot of that is just because of that last chapter. The first 8.5 hours of this chapter, of this arc of Sting, I think can kind of go toe to toe with a lot of those heavy hitter arcs for me. But Scion's interlude really did hit different. For a few reasons. Was it last year? I think it was last year. Maybe a little bit of the year before as well. I remember a couple games that I played and I talked about was Final Fantasy IX and Tales of Arise. Tales of Arise, I think that was when I was still trying to do the videos as podcast videos, and like I would actually like write out a script and record the script, and boy, I fucking hated doing that. Like, I way prefer doing something like this. Like, I have no notes for this. This is completely off the cuff. or even if I have notes, just kind of checking them every now and then, keep myself on track, because I like that more free form way of communicating and of talking. And if it's really annoying, I'm sorry, but it's authentic. Not to say me writing a script is not authentic, but the delivery isn't. It feels very robotic and stiff. And I don't want to be robotic and stiff with talking about this shit. But my point, I remember talking about the last third of Final Fantasy IX, and I guess the second half of Arise, in terms of like its story. I think in terms of hour count, it might have been the last third, because I think everything with the like liberating the Danons was like I think in terms of hour count that was about 2/3. I could be wrong about that. And I talked about how different, I don't want to say it, the story for most of the games had been about like this particular plot point and plot thread, and then at the end it expands and is now saying, it's like, we're focusing on something completely different. This is kind of what the story has been about the entire time, and how much I genuinely disliked that. Partly, I think, like with Final Fantasy IX, it was a combination of, I really liked what we were focusing on, and then when we moved past it, I really didn't. Like, I'm not a big fan of the last third or so of that game. And then with Arise, it's not that I hated all the plot threads and events that happened in the second half. It was just more of, you had something that wasn't perfect. I had my problems with it, but I thought was so interesting and fleshed out in a lot of different ways. I really don't like the way we just shifted gears and changed tactics. And as I'm listening to Scion's interlude, and I can tell the entire story is being recontextualized. Like, I thought I was reading a superhero story. Now I realize I've been reading this cosmic Lovecraftian horror the entire time. And instead of being frustrated or annoyed that, like, this is what we're doing, like, none of this other shit matters anymore because I guess we're doing this, I'm like, dude, no, none of that shit matters. It does, because it was great. I had my problems with something, but, you know, a lot of it was great. And it's like, now we're doing this. And what the fuck? This is wild. It reminds me of how I felt reading Sea Cats. It's like, that was it, because I was like, what was the big reading project last year that completely derailed One Piece? It was Umineko. Fate, and then reading Umineko. And how, as Sea Cats goes on, yeah, the story thematically expands. And it goes from just like, okay, it's a murder mystery about a bunch of assholes on an island. And then it ends up becoming about, fuck, I'm trying to remember. Like, I remember I, like, went off about it in the best possible way, because I loved it. In my 4-hour Sea Cats video, and it was about how, you know, like, it's a murder mystery, and then it evolves from being a murder mystery into, it was like, it's about mystery stories, and then there's that other foundational layer, how it's just about family trauma, and how, as horrible as these people are, it's because they're so fundamentally broken from that generational trauma. It's a story about the, like, writing a story, and like a mystery in particular, but also how, as an author, there's a relationship you have with your audience. Maybe not necessarily a duty, but there's a relationship with the audience, and the audience, for better or for worse, demands satisfaction. And there's all these different layers, and it's about belief, and about belief in reality versus a belief in your own delusion. But if your delusion is something that genuinely makes you happy and makes your life worth living, isn't that better than actively believing in reality? That is what strength and sorry, I'm getting into my own writing about, like, strength and beauty. This is about magic and a trick. Thank you. That's it. about magic and a trick, and about how without love it cannot be seen, and all the different things that means. And by the end, you realize, actually, I've been reading Dante's Inferno the entire time, and it all works. And again, like with Arise or Nine, instead of me getting mad or frustrated, it made me not only excited once I started peeling back the layers. Like, this is not a glass onion, it's just an onion with a lot of layers. It got me so excited to see what next layer I was gonna find. Like, is this I don't even like onions, but like, I want to keep seeing how far does this go. This is so interesting, this is so wild. And if you can't tell, there's this passion in me for this. And it's not to say that, like, I was dispassionate about Worm. Clearly not, if I've been reading it at the pace that I've been. But even then, like, I was talking about Arc 25 and I thought it was dog shit. I still think it's dog shit. Like, Arc 26 being a masterpiece does not make me think 25 was any better. I did not like it. But, it makes me forgive it a little bit, because I'm like, okay, that was just an illusion. It's not like, oh no, the story's about to get bad or just spin its wheels. Oh no, it ain't. I was talking in the last arc, like, dude, where's the end game? We gotta be moving towards it. Oh, motherfucker, we just did. This is the kind of shit that makes me love writing and telling stories. It was this chapter, not even this arc as a whole, as fucking great as it was. It was this chapter that is, I don't want to say it's the moment when Worm went from good to great, because again, with some exceptions, arc 25, I feel like Worm has been great for a while. I think the moment it went from good to great was probably somewhere around Leviathan, maybe a little bit sooner. I mean, like, I'm partial to Heist. I really like the Heist. I think that is arc 3. I think Leviathan is when it went from good to great. And with some of these other arcs, 16, 19, it's those moments where, like, 24 is another. Fuck, 20 was so good. There's these other arcs where I'm like, it's staying great. Not every arc is a winner, but most of them are still good, competent. Again, I really did not like arc 25. This is the arc that, like, restored my... It's not that my faith was, like, super broken, but let me put it like this. While reading arc 25, I was thinking to myself, the story's really fucking long. Maybe I need to take a break because this arc is so bad. Arc 26 just made me go, okay, so I know my plan is to finish an arc a week? What if I didn't do that? What if next week, in addition to studying, because I really need to do that for the bar exam and all that shit, this arc was 10 hours. The next arc, 2 arcs together are about 10 hours. What if I read them both next week? Boom. Then we have like an 8.5 hour arc. That one's going to be a while. And something I've been thinking for a while is, when I get to the last 2 arcs, what if I just make a day out of it? Where, especially with the last arc, I'm like, I will probably just do that in a day. Like, I'm finishing Worm today, but no one's going to stop me. I'm now really thinking, the last 2 arcs together are like 10 hours. I might just say, no one talk to me for the next 10 hours. I'm finishing Worm when I get to that point. What this interlude did, like I was trying to say before I got sidetracked, that's one of my videos. I'm gonna get sidetracked, all on tangents, pins, and all that shit. Leviathan is the moment where Worm went from good to great, and the story has been consistently great since, with arcs every now and then to make me go, yeah, it's like super great. Scion's interlude is the moment where it went from great to special or important. Like, I'm going to remember this one for a long time. And it's hard to say why, because it's not just like me saying, oh yeah, dude, like the shit with the shards is like so cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's neat as fuck. Like, I think this, again, this whole like cosmic horror shit, like, it's really cool. What I mean that it's special is, as I was listening to this chapter, and I will be honest, something I've been doing, I think since arc 15, is listening to Worm at a faster speed, like 1.5 times speed. I think there was times during 15 where I was experimenting with like, all right, 1.75, 2 times, try to get through it faster. Pretty much, and I might have done that during 16 as well. But generally 1.5 times speed. I didn't do that for Scion. That was normal speed the entire time, because I just like this feels like it needs to be. And I was right. But what I mean is, it's the kind of chapter where, as I was reading it, and as I'm just like, dude, what the fuck? What the fuck is happening? I felt so giddy and excited. And that was the moment where I said, I want to write something like this. Not necessarily saying that's like, oh, I'm gonna write, which is shitty in its own way, because I have, it's since when, 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. That was around when I came up with Opulent Shoals, which is my superhero story idea. And I'm like, okay, it's definitely not Worm. There's some similarities, like it's not trigger events, that's definitely not how powers work, it's its own shit, but it's also its own kind of cosmic shit where I'm like, there's similarities, and Opulent Shoals hasn't come out yet. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on it, and like that, I know I'm going in a lot of different directions. So like, even my brain is like, I want to talk about this thing, I want to talk about this thing, and I want to talk about this thing all at the same time. And they're all like, I'm getting my signals crossed. I need Jack Shard to have the broadcast to be like keeping me focused. That was some gnarly shit. Sorry. As I was saying, my signals got crossed and I was trying to say something. And I was trying to say like multiple things at once and I couldn't form words. The frustrating part is there's enough almost similarities where I could see someone reading Opulent Shoals, knowing that I read Worm, and then going like, oh, I can see the inspiration. Not that there's any problem in being inspired by Worm. The story fucking rules. But I'm like, that's a coincidence. I promise. Although, I will say, like, while reading some of the earlier parts of Worm, I was like, okay, I need to do more crazy shit with the powers in this story. And it's not like they get absolutely wild or esoteric. But it made me... It inspired me in the way that... Earlier on reading Worm, it inspired me in the way that you would think it would. I want to write a superpower story. I want to do more creative shit like that, blah, 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 blah. This chapter inspired me in the way where it's just, dude, I want to write something that absolutely fucks. The way that I felt while reading Sea Cats, while reading Muv-Luv, when I watched Little Witch Academia, when I watched Madoka, and definitely, well, there were parts during Scion's interlude where I'm like, this motherfucker is just Cube. What the fuck? Like, it's different, but I'm like, fuck damn it. Of course, when I'm like, I can't wait to rewatch Madoka again, I'm reading Worm, and it's giving me that similar vibe, and I'm getting that energy from it. That's what I mean when I'm like, it's not just the giddiness of, I love this story and I want to see where it goes, although that happened. I really felt that reading 22. That, I can't say it's the only arc where that happened. Like, reading 20, I think I did that all in a day, because I could not, no, I think it was a couple days, but like, I could not put 20 down. It's the kind of, that's what I mean when I say it's special. It's the stories like this are why I want to be a writer, because I want someone to feel like this when they read my work. I want them to feel excited, to feel giddy, to be like, dude, this shit is crazy. This is awesome. I cannot wait to see where this goes. Like I was saying, like in the middle of my walk, like I had to stop reading the chapter to call Anthony so I could talk about the chapter. I remember this was in 18 or 19, I don't remember which. I remember talking about some of the expanded lore, like the parallel universes and shit, being like, I don't know. I like the world building's cool, and I get it. You've got a lot of really cool ideas. You understand how your world works. As the reader, I don't know if I need to know all of them. Part of that I still stand by, because it's the wait, so like the reason Sundancer is heat resistant isn't because her power kind of made her heat resistant. It's because that heat goes to another universe. I still think that's kind of stupid. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Even, especially more after reading this one, and you're hearing the entity, you're hearing Zion or Zion, which is now making me think, wait, was he always saying, did he say Zion and they just misheard him? Because that's honestly hilarious. I can't lie. But anyways, shit. Sorry, I got distracted. I lost my train of thought. Where was I? It was something about, oh, sorry, I remember now. But as we're going through Zion, talking about like the cycles and how the shards work and everything, and he's like, okay, humans are too fragile, but I want to observe them, see what we can learn, how we can evolve, how the shards can evolve. Certain precautions and the safeguards need to be implemented. I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense as is. I don't know about some of this other like multiversal shit. And then at the same time, I'm reading this chapter that is like super expanding the lore, recontextualizing like the entire series. I'm like, yeah, this absolutely fucks, and I want more of it, because that's what it is as a reader. Like, you know what you want, and sometimes you have absolutely no idea what the fuck you want, and sometimes you're like, hey, this is really stupid. This is kind of more of this. Wait, no, but that's cool though. It's just how it is, you know? Art is subjective. I have a pretty low threshold for what I think art is. And I don't think that's like I have low standards. It's just I believe that anything made with creative intent is a work of art. You can express art in so many different ways. That doesn't mean every work of art is good. Like, there's certain things, I don't know, like I was talking about in a Room Talk video the other day, Project Horizons. Boy, I am excited to read that again, and it's sarcastic and genuine at the same time. I'm like, there's things about it I love. I feel like a lot more that I hate, and I just want to talk about it and analyze it and sink my teeth into it. It's a work of art. It's not my favorite work of art, but I can still, with no hesitation, think of it as a work of art. Worm is a work of art. And like I said, reading this last chapter, listening to it, which you know what I mean, Scion's interlude is what, for me, I'm like, okay, Worm, you get to go into like the executive suite. Like, like, I guess it's like, you know, if I think all these kind of things are a work of art, like it's a work of art, but I if I'm the curator, I'm not putting it in my museum. Worm was in the museum already. And I feel like around Arc 8, it's like, okay, now you're going to go into like one of the more, like the better areas of the museum. Okay, and after shit like 16 and 19 and 20, 24, I like with all these like really good arcs, like, okay, I'm going to put you in like a better wing of the museum. Okay, now you're in now you're in like a special, really special part of my museum. I fucking loved this. As you could probably tell. It's been, what, 25 minutes? 25 minutes of my unfocused fucking rambling to surmise it. Is that the right word? I think it is. This is a really good arc, and I want to make a video talking about the arc itself, about the fights. And I know I say it all the time. I get way more into the politics and the ethics and the conversations rather than the fights. It's still true. There are some cool ass fucking fights and some cool ass fucking set pieces. Like the whole scene where they get Jack is so fucking cool, man. And I was talking in the last video, I think, or it was the last video. It might have been a room talk, I'm not sure. Where I was like, I don't know what happens to Jack. I don't know what I want to happen to Jack. It's like, what is a satisfying end for Jack Slash? That's a satisfying end for Jack Slash. Like, that was fucking great. I loved it. I also have to go ahead and say this. I'll probably say it in the actual Arc 26 video as well. If Worm... it's gonna be related. If Worm is ever adapted into a show, or any kind of other visual medium, like a VN... Actually, Worm is a VN. I think could work pretty well. I think I've said that before. If it's some kind of visual medium, whoever is cast to play Coil's sniper from the ABB raid, which I think was Arc 5, because 3 is the heist. I think 4 was Bakura, and 5 was the ABB raid, if I'm getting that right. Or did the ABB raid happen and then Bakura? Because that actually makes more sense, because it's like they got... If I'm correct, it's like they got Long and then Bakura went off. But also, because like that's what gets them the seat at the table is the heist. But at the same time, it was after the heist, like, we gotta go fucking pick up our money, and that's what led to Bakura. So I don't exactly remember if it's 4 and 5 or 5 and 4. I mean, obviously 4 comes 4 5, but I think you know what I mean there. Anyways, my point is, whoever would play Coil Sniper in an adaptation should also play that PRT soldier that got Jack. It's my headcanon, they're the same person. That's really cool. And given the fact that Coil is Calvert and Calvert's a PRT dude, that actually makes a lot of sense to me that it would be like a PRT soldier. So I just think that'd be super neat. I'm going to take that pen out real quick. This is something I thought of a while ago. Oh, excuse me. And I don't think I brought it up, because I've had other worm-related things to talk about. But it's something that resurfaced, and I don't even know what like brought it on, what triggered it, you know, worm terminology. Excuse me. If Worm were adapted into a TV show, live action, animated, doesn't matter. Sorry, my brain, as I was saying, it was like, live action, animated, puppets, doesn't matter. And I was like, I'm not going to say the puppet part out loud. And the more I thought about it, I've never seen Thunderbolt Fantasy, but I've like watched it, but I've seen clips of like, this is the weirdest shit. And I kind of want to see this. Like, I don't know, you could do that with Worm and it would slap because it's a great fucking story. I know what song I would want to be the opening, or like the credit theme, like at the end of the episode, whatever, but kind of the show's main theme. And it might sound like a really weird out there pick, and I'm not gonna lie, it kind of is. It's the song Real World by Matchbox 20. Because I was listening to it the other day, and I was like, this song really reminds me of Worm, and it really reminds me of Taylor. It's like the first verse is about like being a rainmaker, and it's like, it's, you know, someone, not literally making rain, although that's part of it too. It's like someone who makes deals and brokers deals and shit. I'm like, okay, that's kind of Taylor. I can see that. But a line about being, you know, like being a suit, like I'm trying to remember how the song actually goes off the top of my head, and It's been in my head all day, and now that I have to actually quote it, I can't think of it, and I'm like, fuck, I hope that doesn't happen during the bar exam. But it's like I want to know what it's like to be a superhero, and I'm like, that's very fitting for Taylor. The next verse after that, the chorus is in the middle, but then like in the next verse, it's like, I'd like to know what it's like to be the head honcho. I'm like, okay, so first off, being the queen administrator, because now I know what the fuck that means, at least to some degree. I don't know everything about it. This is a spoiler I kind of knew because I heard of glowworm and I wanted to look into it. It's like, so what is glowworm? Is that a fanfic? Is it canon? Is it kind of both? And the first thing I see when I look into it, it's like, this is what happens if Taylor got Shazam's powers instead of the Queen Administrator. I'm like, okay, I guess that's the name of her passenger. It's kind of all I know about it. And then later in 25, something I forgot to bring up, I don't think I brought this up, is when the Fairy Queen is talking, she refers to Taylor as Queen Administrator. So I'm like, oh fuck, she can see people's passengers. That sounds nutty. I don't know how important that is, but that sounds nutty as fuck. Anyways, being the head honcho, being the queen, which is also how she introduces herself to Nilbog. Speaking of, like, fucking cool shit that happened in this arc I haven't even talked about because of everything else, like the Scion shit. Sorry, I keep losing my place because I just get, like, so giddy talking about this way. Being the head honcho, given her power, like how she is the head honcho of every bug, like, I could kind of see that. Also, her being a fucking crime lord, and at one point she is the queen of Brockton Bay, and again, that's how she introduces herself to Nilbog. I was a queen, and on the one hand, I'm like, oh, okay, I get that, because, like, she's the queen of her hive, and also, you were the fucking queen of the city. Like, that kind of works and makes sense. Like, this song weirdly kind of fits Taylor? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy with that one, but I think I'm low-key cooking with it. Maybe not exactly cooking with gas, but cooking a little bit. I would love to see Worm get adapted. I need to finish this fucking thing first. At the rate I'm going, with how excited I am, like, I know I had made an executive decision that it's time to read Horizons, and I can't wait to fucking do it. I might just say, like, fuck, man, I gotta read Ward now. I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. This was I just finished the arc. I need to talk about the last chapter and the effect it had on me. I will get to a video on 26 as a whole at some point. Definitely not tomorrow. I would assume like Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere around there, but if I am making these videos to chronicle my journey through Worm, this is a moment I needed to chronicle. So, here we go. You have a good night, a good weekend, rest of the month, etc., etc. Take care.